Francis specifically asked me to perform this one, and I was brought up on the tales of my antecedents, both my dad's Welsh side and my mother's English side. And my mother's family have been here in the Black Country since before it was even called the Black Country. Tracing back over 300 years. And I can trace the Wilcoxes, it's my mother's father's side, in a direct line, father to son, almost 300 years back to the middle of the 18th century. From my 5-time great-grandparents in Stourbridge, all the way through the centuries and throughout the whole region, up to West Brom, where I was born 64 years ago. And my great-grandfather, who was a tailor, and his parents and his grandparents all lived right here in Dudley, just up the road a piece, in Hedge, and Cross Street, I think, around there. And they're all buried in St John and St Thomas. The poem I'm going to perform for you is based on the reminiscences of my mother, who is now in her 90s, has told to me about her childhood and her parents in the 1930s and 40s, so during the war, and it was inspired by a tiny teapot. This very teapot here used to belong to my granny. And they lived in Whalley at the time, and if anyone here from Dudley wants to say that Whalley is not the Black Country, I'll bloody fight them. I did have a bloody someone from Dudley a few years ago. He says to me, "Oh, Albury, that ain't the Black Country." I seem to sort that he's mad. Anyway, the action takes place in the early 1940s during the Second World War, and my mother would have been around 10 or 12 years old, and her parents both worked in the factories around Smithwick and West Brom. Before I start, I need to have some water, excuse me. Okay, very dry now. This is called Granny's Teapot. Or should I say? Granny's Teapot.
Yeah.
Really? I'll stick to teapot for the minute. Granny's Teapot is short and stout. Granny's Teapot has an elegant spout. Granny's Teapot pours 2 cups of tea out. Granny's Teapot, she was never without. You see, Granny Wilcox took her little 2-cup aluminium teapot to work every day, along with a dab of sugar, a drop of milk, and a twist of tea. Ration cards, you see. Come break time, the kettle would go on, and the ladies would line up to fill their little teapots to the brim. All the better to brew the amber liquid in. All the better to keep the production line going. Each one to their own little pot. Making munitions is thirsty work, and you of course stop for long when you've got the bottomless mouths of water to feed. You see, Granny worked down the pens, British pens, the pedigree works, Bearwood Road, Smerwick. It's a nursing home now, but back then that factory used to make pens and nibs. Back in the day when the Black Country in Birmingham manufactured 75% of the world's calligraphic needs. The pen might be mightier than the sword, but during World War II, machine gun bullet clips won out over the pen nib. On Granny's death certificate, it lists her occupation as grass reliever. Considering her daughter, my mother, had beautiful copper plate writing, it seems strange to see Granny's initials so crudely scratched. You can't see it, but I'll show you after if you're so crudely scratched onto the bottom of the little pot. N.W. May Wilcox, named after the month. Or maybe the May, or the maybe not, I'm not sure. She liked going out to work. It meant purpose, status, pin money, camaraderie, friends. Work hard, chat loads, have a laugh. Put off going home until it was absolutely necessary. You see there, Granny was not mom. She's not the missus. Or her indoors. There she was her own person. May, her outdoors. That's what my mum told me. But what about my mum? Oh, she was only 10 years old in 1943. It was a little sparrow, a tiny dot, and she had to take over running the house from her mum. Saturdays, do the shopping at Cape Hill Market, rabid because it wore on rations. Broken Kunzel cakes because they was cheap, and they still tasted the same. Groceries from the co-op. Oh, don't forget to pay for the coal delivery with the Green Shield stamps while you're there. Fish from Dudley's on Bearwood High Street, bread from near Granny Marley's in Langley. When you've done that, you can scrub the floor, wash the dishes, and go get Grandpa Barnsley his jug of ale from the outdoor. And mind you don't spill it on the way back. Every morning, she had to take her squabbling younger brother and sister off to junior school and drop them off. And then one night, Billy home to hers, get caned for being late regardless. Pick them up after, water and feed them, milk and biscuits, maybe a bit of jam if they were really lucky. Light the fire under the oven, prepare the veg, fill the pot, start the food, clean the kitchen, have everything all spick and span. But when her mom got back from the factory, if she was lucky, she could maybe find a few minutes after washing the dishes to do her homework before her dad rolled in from the pub. As a dedicated drinking under his belt, down the boozer with his workmates, straight after the factory whistle, washing out the first taste of endless shifts in the satanic steelworks of Smerick and West Brom, dulling the edges of reality with the sweet amber nectar of Mitchell and Butler's finest, and the thick blue smoke wreaths of wild woodbine for the health conscious. Hard dry for the sophisticated. Flavoured egg for the ladies. Players Navy cooks for the men. And captains full strength for the real men. Hazy and intoxicating, curling around brown, stained, claw-like fingers. Oh, it's thirsty work, making steel for the war machine. Non-stop double shifts, working weekends, often sleeping on the factory floor too, trying to ignore the constant gnawing pains of unforgiving stomach ulcers and the unrelenting pounding of top forged clappers. What the working man needs at the end of it all, you have to go home to a nagging wife and whining kids. No, what he needs is to have a drink with his men around him. The ones he trusts, the blocks he works with, the ones that have got his back. And of course, everything seems better when you invite the working man's best mates to the party. You all know them, I'm quite sure. Nick O'Teen and Al Cape Hall. Hey, roll up the barrel! We are gathered here today to turn wine into water. Well, beer into water, any roll, but you're all right, Billy boy. Time to pick 'em for him. Oh, go on then, just the one. Who's round it? On again. Right, old chap, set 'em up. Time, gentlemen, please. Ding, 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 ding. Drink up. Fall out the pub door, stagger down the road, roll up the garden path. It's locked up again. Fumble with the key. Bang on the door, wait to be let in, swaying on booze and bonhomie, the sweet stale breath of beer and tobacco rolling off in giddy waves and swirling thoughts. Try not to fall over in the flower bed or the veg patch. And then the shouting would start. What time do you call this? Where's your wages gone? What do you mean you've spent them all? The dinner would go up the wall. The accusations would fly back and forth, to and fro, flavoured with the bitterness of life lived out of sheer habit, lives of stubborn resistance and sullen resignation. Eventually there'd be a kind of silence, the angry voices replaced by the beer-soaked snores of a drunken, overworked, exhausted man, and the muffled mutterings of a bitterly disappointed woman. And yet, in most pubs, people still prefer bitter to mild. Granny's teapot would have made of that. Maybe this explains our national addiction. Bitter tea mixed with mild milk and a little spoonful of sugar to sweeten the pain. Granny retired in the mid-1960s, not long after I was born. To me, Granny Wilcox was a short, stout woman with a wide, flat nose, peppered with pores like a ripe strawberry, a dusting of pinky beige face powder, and a faint smell of yardley lavender. And she kept her knitting down by the side of her armchair, next to the fireplace in the radio times. Oh, she could knit and crochet anything you asked for. Let me tell you, her loo rolls never felt the draft. Hidden away under the voluminous skirts of a crocheted pink, yellow or blue lady. But sometimes, after Grandpa had died, she just sat there, staring out the window, watching the world slowly drift past. Watching the world slowly drift past the net curtains. I'm not sure how much of it she ever caught in that day. Mum would tell me that when Granny was younger, she had hair as black and as blue as a raven's wing. That Granny had had kind, loving parents. That she liked being out with her friends. She liked to dance. She laughed and she smiled. She was happy. But I never knew that woman. I don't know how we ended up with Granny's little teapot for tea. She never used it in her house. It was just a relic from her working days. I accommodated it at some point before I moved to the street. I took it away with me and I kept it close. I just liked its shape and its size and the sheer silliness of a tiny two-cup teapot. And that's cups, by the way. Cups, not mugs. Cups, small ones. Bone china too, I bet. And here it sits now in front of me. And I wonder if Granny ever shared the contents of her teapot with anyone else. Or did she just keep the bittersweet, life-saving liquid all to herself? Granny's teapot is short and stout. Granny's teapot has an elegant spout. Granny's teapot pours 2 cups of tea out. Granny's teapot. I'm not sure I'll ever really work out. Thank you.